What is up guys, Morton here from SteamFirst.com with a review for Chronology, a puzzle platformer developed by OSO Games and released May 12, 2014 on Steam for $5. Chronology is a puzzle platformer based around time manipulation. You swap between the two main characters, an old inventor and a snail. The inventor can swap between present day and the future where things are destroyed or in different positions, and the snail can walk up walls and freeze time completely. The objective is to find out what happened that caused the present day to end up like it is. The story is pretty good overall and probably the strongest part of the game. As I mentioned, the main character is an inventor who invented a device that allows you to travel back and forth through time. He awoke to a destroyed world but can't remember what happened to make it that way. His goal becomes to fix the present by going back in time and stopping whatever caused this in the first place. The story is pretty interesting, but it's too short for any real character development, so what you see is what you get with the characters from the beginning. Story gets a 4 out of 5. It's well put together and keeps you interested in it, but the length does hinder it from truly fleshing out the characters. Gameplay wise, things are kind of lacking. I mentioned length, the game is really short. You can probably finish it in about an hour and a half, 2 hours at most, and because of that, the puzzles never have a chance to get difficult. On top of that, you get all the abilities really early on, so the solutions to puzzles in Chapter 2 are also the same solutions to the puzzles in Chapter 7, which means that there's no difficulty curve and things start to get redundant by the end. The controls are also pretty mediocre, at least with a keyboard. Swapping between the inventor and snail is the A key. Using their ability, changing time and freezing time respectively, is done with W, and the inventor can use S to call the snail to his current location. But you need to use those three keys a lot and in a short amount of time, and it gets really awkward keeping track of which character you're using and which mechanic you want to use. The mechanics are well implemented though, and the platforming is fun. If you do fall to your death, you respawn instantly where you fell off, so dying doesn't really feel like you messed up, which is both good and bad I guess. It's not really that gameplay's bad exactly, it's more so just kind of boring. The controls are frustrating and the puzzles are all solved by going as far as you can in one time period, then swapping to the other time period, finding whatever changed, and using that. Gameplay gets a 2.5 out of 5. It has potential with the mechanics, but the puzzles are so dull that you'll only be playing for the story, not because the game is particularly fun. Graphically, the game looks great. It has a certain style to it that's very clean and unique. There's a lot of attention to detail that you don't see in most indie games. It's very atmospheric. The present day is dark and dreary while the past is bright and colorful, and everything in the past that gets destroyed in the present can be easily distinguished, which helps with the puzzles. Graphics gets a 5 out of 5. They're incredibly well done and fit the theme of the game perfectly. Along with that, the audio is well done too. The characters all have voice actors, which is always nice, and they did a pretty good job. The inventor sounds old, kind of confused and annoyed at times, which he is, while the snail sounds young and overly optimistic, which it is. The soundtrack is also good, with the music fitting the game all the way through. Sound gets a 4.5 out of 5, with the only downside being there were a couple of audio bugs I noticed where sound would cut out for a little bit, but it always came back quickly and wasn't a huge issue. As for replayability, there's literally none at all. There are no achievements to try and get or a scoring system to try and improve with. The game is completely linear from start to finish, so there's no alternate ways to do anything, and since you'll know how to get through the already easy puzzles, it won't be challenging at all. This is probably the only time where I can safely say that replayability gets a 0 out of 5. Overall, Chronology isn't a bad game by any means. The graphics, sound, and story are all really well done, but the gameplay is dull and not challenging, and I didn't mention this elsewhere, but the loading times are completely absurd. I had a couple of 5-minute loading screens. There's only a few loading screens in the entire game, but they take an unacceptable amount of time. Regardless though, Chronology gets a 3.5 out of 5. Even though it's a short game, it's only $5, and the story and graphics alone make it almost worth that. I also want to point out that although anyone will probably enjoy it, it would be a fantastic game for kids, with likable characters, interesting mechanics, and pretty simple puzzles.